My name is Josh and I'm 35 years old. My ex-wife Lopez is 27 years old. It was my second marriage and Lopez's first marriage. It was at my child's school where I met Lopez, who was my child's teacher when my child was 7 years old. My first marriage resulted in me having my child. As a single father, I had to raise my children alone. I lost my first wife to cancer a few days ago. As a matter of fact, Lopez was my child's teacher, and I also hired her as tutor as well. I found her to be a very nice person. It was love at first sight for me. There was also a liking for her on the part of Mike. There was a strong bond between them. Since I liked her sense of humor, I always tried to spend as much as time with her as possible. I mainly started hanging out with her after school, so we spent most of our time together. It turned out that she was aware of my situation as well as about the mother of Mike. The fact that she always sent me a good morning and good night message was a good sign for me. I could tell that she shared all her thoughts with me. It looked like she was getting more and more interested in me, in the same way that I was. It's true that I have always thought about Mike. I mean, is he really ready to accept a new mother in his life? When I finally decided that it was time to talk to Lopez, she surprisingly agreed, and we also discussed the problem about Mike while talking to her. Therefore, she said that there was no need to worry about him as he would love to be my stepson. Therefore, both of us spoke with Mike about the matter. I guess he was a kid, but when I talked to him, I think he was even more excited to have a new mother than I was. All said and we got married after months of planning. The joy I felt with Lopez entered my life again was tremendous because I was able to live my life in a more colorful way. As everything was going well, Mike was also enjoying this because now his favorite teacher was also his mother, which made him feel special. So Mike had the opportunity to spend more time with Lopez as a result. The experience of having a wife and sexual relations after 2 years was also good. It was due to the loss of Mike's mother that I did not even give any thought to any other girl at that time. I was just busy with Mike as he was still just a baby at that time and he needed much more attention than any other girl could give him. Anyhow, Lopez moved into our house about a month ago. I also organized a trip to Canada and Mike was also with us. I must say that it was a very nice trip for all of us after a long time, and then we got busy with our jobs. However, for a few days, she appeared to be upset. When I asked her about something, she did not tell me anything about it. Finally, after insisting on her, she eventually told me that her house is on Mortage. She told me that her father had a huge loan on him, which is why the house is on Mortage. In response to her, I replied that now that you are living in our house, do you still want to own that house? She replied yes. I want that house since she was emotionally attached to it, so she said yes, I want that house. During her childhood, that was the house in which she spent most of her time. For her house to be free, she needed to get rid of it. It was revealed to me that she had been saving money for the last 4 years in order to pay for my house mortgage. However, the amount still needs to be raised. The first thing that I said to her is that don't worry about that. We are going to come up with a way so we'll be able to pay for the entire mortgage. Don't even think about it because now you are my wife. My first thought was how to pay for her house mortgage. As I checked all my accounts, I found that the amount I had was not enough to make the payment. As a result, I decided to sell some of my properties in Philadelphia in the near future. A few days later, I went to Philadelphia to meet a real estate agent who was going to evaluate the prices of the property that I was considering buying. When he informed me about the prices, I told him to find someone who would be able to buy the property at a good price. In order for me to finalize the deal, he requested some time for me to do so. As soon as I agreed with him, I told him to take his time, but as soon as possible. Upon returning home, I found out that Mike had told me that Lopez had not come home for the last 1 day, which was a strange act on part of her. In my mind, I could not understand how she could be irresponsible for Mike, who was just 7 years old at that time, and I was very concerned about her. I called her many times, but she refused to answer, and I was very worried about her. I tried to contact her, but she did not respond to me. She came back to the house that evening, and in anger, I asked her where she was. Lopez replied that she could explain, so I asked her to tell me where you were going. According to her, the bank staff came and claimed to be the owner of the property. Consequently, I had to go out of the town in order to manage some money that I had. The least you can do is leave a message for me. Although I was working on it, I was also trying to arrange money. A few days later, Lopez left for the school, but she forgot her cell phone at home. I was on my way to my office when I came across the school. As soon as I arrived at school, I gave the cell phone to one of her colleagues. The teacher asked me about Lopez, where she was for the last 5 days, as she had not been to school. Does she seem to be doing well, and how is her health? I was shocked because Lopez came to school on a daily basis, so why she was not coming to school? I was wondering. I thought it was suspicious. As soon as I reached my office, I called her. She received the call and I asked where she is right now so I could meet her. In her reply, she said that she was in a meeting at school at the moment. It was now clear that something very wrong was being hidden behind her back. Towards the end of the evening, she returned home. In spite of this, she appeared confident. It wasn't something I asked her about, but I did decide to follow her the next day without asking her first. As I followed her the next day, she went to a restaurant to meet with a man. I don't know what happened, but I think they were old friends and very close. However, I don't understand why she was lying to me by saying that she was at school. Suddenly, I saw her kissing that guy. Afterwards, they drove to a house that was probably owned by that man. It was in that house that she spent most of her day. She just cheated on me after 3 months of marriage, and I was shocked. However, she came back home in the evening and asked me about the payment of the mortgage on the house. I asked her to take me to the office. Suddenly, she changed the subject and started talking about something else. In addition, she did not reveal where the office is located, nor which bank deals with the mortgage of her house. I did not insist her to tell the truth because I had a good feeling that she was lying to me. Lopez just said to me, "Honey, I can handle the situation for you. You just have to arrange the money and I will negotiate with the bank." There was no argument from me, and I replied that I needed a few days to arrange money because my properties are just about to go on the market in Philadelphia. In response to this, she kissed me, hugged me, and started sex with me while I wasn't ready. But she had some magic and I fell for her and fucked her. I was now aware of the reality, however, and that was frustrating for me as it wasn't something that could be accepted by me. In order to pay for the divorce papers, I went to see a lawyer. Initially, I wanted to track her progress through all her steps, but I was hampered by my office, so I had to take off some time off from my work. Therefore, I told my staff that I would handle all of the house affairs while I was off from work, so they would not have to worry about me for the sake of finishing her fucking game. As a result, I started following her. Her affairs partner's house was the only place she went to when she was not going to school. My intention was to expose her, but I also wanted to see what she was doing behind my back while I was exposing her. Previously, I had not checked anything about her, so when she was away from the house, I opened all of her luggage and discovered the documents of the house that I have never seen before. The mortgage document for the house was on the name of the person named Jim, and the mortgage was on his name. It is not clear to me who is Jim at first. For me, it was a mystery since that was not the name of her father. Nevertheless, I went to the house in that area where Lopez was meeting the person. I have been investigating about this person from his neighbors, and I have found that the person is known by the name of Jim, who was the Lopez affair partner. Then I was clear that Lopez wanted me to pay the mortgage on the house, which was in the name of Jim. The documents of the house were scanned and printed out from the photos I took of them. The first thing I did was call Lopez and ask where he was. According to her, she was in the school at the moment. I told her that I had received the amount of her house. I suddenly heard her say that I'm coming to the house. The divorce papers are in my hand. I was waiting for her to arrive. After 45 minutes, she came back to the house. While I was sitting in the anger, I was calm at the same time. It was not my intention to start a big conflict. I only wanted to expose her and give her divorce papers and tell her to get out of our lives as soon as possible. In response to her question about the amount, I told her that I would like to show you a piece of paper that shows the amount. I handed her a piece of paper from the house on which a mention had been made of the name of Jin. The sudden appearance of sweat on her face stunned her to the core. Suddenly she said, "Yeah, this is Jim from the bank, and where I will be able to pay the amount, the house papers will be transferred on my name." As I laughed, I asked her, "Do you really think Jim is in the bank? The last time I saw him with you was in his house as well as at a restaurant. How do you know that?" She asked me, "Him." I said, "I am aware of your whole plan. Despite the fact that Jim was your fucker, you still married me to pay the amount on his mortgage." There was sadness in her voice. After that, she said that she could explain it to you while crying if you would listen to me calmly. As she explained, it was just a mistake on her part because of the house is mine, but the name on it belongs to my ex. In reality, it is nothing like what you think it is. My response was that I was not convinced. In order to get her out of my property as soon as possible, I already packed her bag before she came. On her knees, she pleaded on me and telling me not to leave me, that if I did, it would be my last mistake. The whole thing was a misunderstanding. She grabbed my leg while I was standing. There was no way I could get away from her. My anger drove me to kick her as a result. The whole thing made my son cry while he was watching it all. It was not my intention to let my kid watch her while I was doing this to her, but I did not manage the time to send him anywhere. So he was in his room, and I told him he shouldn't come out due to the screaming of Lopez. He came out of the room. I then grabbed her, got her out of my house, and threw the divorce papers at her as well. In the course of an hour, she knocked on the door many times, but I did not open it. One of my neighbors heard her screaming and crying, so he called the police because she was disturbing people around the society and was disturbing the other residents. The police knocked on my door and I told them I had divorced her, but she was still disturbing me and I had filed a case of fraud against both her and Jim as well. It took 3 months for the case to be resolved. There was fake evidences made against me in their defense, but since I was in the right to defend myself, God made me prove that I was right to do. In the end, I won the case and both of them were sentenced to 5 years in prison and fined $3,000 each. As a matter of fact, I was only one step away from making the biggest mistake of my life by paying the money just because I thought she was a decent girl and I liked her as well. You can stay tuned for more cheating revenge stories by clicking the bell icon to stay in touch.